So we've got a bunch of grouchy old dudes telling us how wrong we are when we do this kind of stuff. It's probably my favorite part of posting on Facebook, is seeing the old guys tell you how you don't know what you're doing, and back in the day, well, dude, we're not back in the day no more. As a matter of fact, when this was done back in the day, all they did was pack it full of fiberglass. Nothing was fixed. I'd say we're doing a fair shy better than that. Brings us to $38,000 just to this point. 8 sheets of paper, 0.034 of a mil. You don't know what you're doing. Close your shop, close your doors, just stop doing it. You have no clue how to do it. Hi, I'm Shannon with Kustoms. Today we're talking about my 61 Ford Unibody. I'm actually starting to develop a fleet of these things. I've got like 4 of them now. So this one in particular, I have a long history with. As a matter of fact, when I graduated Outtakes in 2008, this is the first thing I got to work on at the other shop I was at right out of school. I didn't get to do much on it. I did some minor assemblies, some wiring, some basic stuff, but at the time it left a real impression on me. Through the years, when I started my own shop, the owner that owned it back then still did, and he caught up with me. We did a couple of updates, some changes, fixed a couple of gripes and complaints. During that time, he actually had the passenger door fly open. His wife almost fell out. Someone had shaved the door handles and just didn't do a very good job, so we did some minor repair work there. Lots of small just things throughout the years. Well, unfortunately, a couple of years back, the family reached out to me, and the owner, Daryl Keene, had actually passed away. When they were cleaning the truck out after it sat for several years, they found my business card in the ashtray, so they gave me a call. Originally, I was supposed to just do some fixing, some mechanical maintenance stuff, and get it ready to be sold. Once I told them how many repairs it needed and how bad a shape it was in at the time, they decided just to sell it as is. I made an offer, and here we are. The rest is history. So after purchasing the truck, I was kind of torn about what to do with it. Originally, I just wanted to leave it as is, but it was so poorly done and just not well thought out that it was literally falling apart. So the paint was coming off in sheets. We had rust holes. We had dents. So we started stripping it down, and we actually found fiberglass up to 1/2 inch and even 3/4 of an inch thick in some spots. So instead of fixing anything, just filled everything in. I don't think there was a single dent pulled anywhere on this truck. Even the rust, we had some real bad spots down here in the corners. Bottom of the fenders were rotten all the way through. And instead of patching that in with metal, they just used fiberglass. So everything was damaged that we would expect on one of these model body style trucks. So we went through and we stripped it all the way down to the metal. We stripped the hood, fenders, cowl, roof, everything all the way down. This thing had a bed topper. We threw that in the trash can. It was actually poorly installed and leaked real bad. And the bed was done in carpet on the bottom. And the carpet was actually mildewing as a result of all the leaks from all the years sitting in the garage after the owner had passed. With that removed, we stripped the bed floor, pulled the gas tank that was underneath the bed. Very poorly installed plastic fuel cell, had a hole in the floor about that big. Just a bunch of cleanup stuff. Once we had the material off, we started noticing other problems. So the bed in the back here, underneath both sides, was rolled underneath. And ironically, it was done evenly almost side to side where it looked like it was supposed to be that way. When we stripped it down, we found they had just fiberglassed over a lot of those areas, made it appear even when in fact both sides were pulled unevenly. So even though it looked even, the bottom on the right side had about 1 inch of filler in it, while this side had about 1/2 inch filler. So they were bent uneven and just filled in to look the same. It was pretty bad. So after we found all the damages, we kind of had to assess what the plan was with the truck. So we didn't want a $1 million Riddler project, which probably should have been $4 million if I was thinking that. We just wanted a good quality truck. So with this particular body style F100 being the Unibody, it was made in 61, 62, and 63 only, in the 1/2 ton, 3/4 ton, and I believe 1 tons as well, 2-wheel drives, 4-wheel drives. But what makes this unique is this one body line, and the bed and the cab are one piece. That's what kind of hints the Unibody name. These were always bad, like it was just a bad design, but it was badly built from Ford from the start. They don't have body mounts in this area, so the cab and the bed like to twist and they like to break real bad in this particular area. We found those problems too, but they just fiberglassed over it. So with the lack of parts available, because nobody, and I mean nobody, makes a bedside for this. Nobody makes a patch panel for the back. Nobody makes doors. Now, you can get them for some model F100s, but not the Unibody. The Unibody has a straight line where the other models will actually kind of have a dip down in the door. So we're very limited on what we could do as far as what we could buy. I've had a lot of guys just tell me, oh, you should have just bought new panels. Well, about the only thing we could find was a hood, and the hoods were not very good quality metal to begin with. It would have taken just as much work, not only metal-wise, but filler-wise, to make it straight. And the fenders were damaged down here in the bottom, and we could find fenders, but in my experience, the Chinese fenders don't fit good anyway. And with how little the repairs were needed on the fenders, I would rather fix the bottom, make those fit, and gap them good versus trying to buy a new one and have the exact same problem. So you heard me mention earlier, this door had shaved door handles. It looked cool for the body style, but didn't function very well. They didn't make bear claws for this model quite yet. Those hadn't been retrofitted at the time because this was 2008. There wasn't a lot of stuff available for this anyway. So there was just the old standard door pull solenoid with some cables, very poorly done. We decided we wanted to put this back. Now, keep in mind, again, you can't just buy a new door. So we actually sourced this section out of another door and fit it in there so we could have our door handles back and have the operation and the look and the feel and have it work properly, too. Okay, on this side of the truck, we had a lot of problems. I mean, this is the door that flew open. Again, so same shaved handle problem, but on this one, we had extra problems. So the shell was damaged top to bottom where the hinges are, because when he was rounding a corner is when it flew open. So momentum took the door and folded it straight instead of where it usually stops. So the hinge pockets were damaged in the pillar. The pillar was actually physically twisted in the cabin and broken spot welds. And even the shell had broken spot welds where the layers were behind the hinge support. So all that had to be fixed too. Again, they don't make a door that has this body line in it. By the time we thought about putting another door on and then restructuring the skin over it, the work didn't make any sense. It was smarter to actually fix what we had. That's kind of the theme of the truck, was fixing what we had. So during Ford's build process on these, the floor and the bedside actually weld together right around about here, and then the wheel well is spot welded in there, and it comes back to the floor. So the problems this causes is they just squeezed it in. So the bed was really ripply, and right here in these areas, they like to rust a lot. And we found on this one, it was rusting on both sides probably 4 paint jobs ago. So we had to repair this whole area. Now, what we didn't want to do is try to build a new bedside, because this is actually a very complex side. It isn't straight. It has a crown in it, front to rear, and top to bottom, and you got the lines. That's actually a pretty complex panel to just make. With what we were trying to do for the truck, again, not making a show perfect metal finished truck, we were just trying to make a decent quality vehicle out of it. We opted to repair the areas as best we could. We pulled all this stuff within an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch where we could. And again, the reason this area would have been an 1/8 is because where they squeezed everything in. So only for maybe an inch wide in these areas is there any thick amounts of filler, if you will. And even then, we repaired those areas as best we could. The only way we could have made it any straighter is actually cutting the floor out and rebuilding a whole new floor section. And if you've ever built any of these, you know how complex that is. So what we ended up with in this area, we have about 39 mils of thickness, including the primer and the filler, so it's still pretty thin. Even back here, where we had to pull the sides out, that ended up turning out really good, and even that's under 40 mils as well total, including the primer. The bedside had been caved in. So at some point in this thing's life, something fell on the side of this. So what you got to know about this is it was a farm truck. It did farm truck stuff. This thing was abused, so all the tops were damaged. And again, not be able to have parts, we fixed and straightened what we could. We repaired and replaced large sections on the top of the bedsides. And this here, we had to cut the structure and bring it back out. So what I'm saying is, long before we got to the filler work or the primer work on this, we spent a lot of time on metal work. As a matter of fact, we have 640 hours of metal work alone on this truck. Again, not trying to metal finish it to make it perfect. We have a lot of guys that on the internet, on Facebook and Instagram, to tell us you need to metal finish everything. Well, if we had 640 hours just in the repairs we made, I can only imagine how much more we would have had trying to metal finish the project before we even got to the body stage. Okay, so this truck here, when we got done with the metal working process, we started the body work process. That one's already in primer, so we're actually going to step over to this Camaro here that we just finished metal work and just started filler to give you kind of an idea of what we ended up doing. So the first thing we do is we prep the entire metal surface, clean up any burns from welding any kind of imperfections. Look it over again. So if there's anything that got missed during metal fab, we can come back and clean that kind of stuff up. We use a straight edge a lot. What's kind of hard is having a curvy car like this Camaro. It's kind of hard to use this, but we still use it across our areas to get an idea of how our panels fit together. Typically, we do this with the weather stripping in the car. At this point, we've already removed it for some of this process. On this car here, this is epoxy primer. It's a direct metal epoxy primer. So this is our bed we put our filler over. Reason we do this is back in the day, you'll see all the rusted out cars from the filler being applied over direct metal. A lot of material providers today prefer you do the epoxy first as a kind of a liner, if you will, between the two, and the filler has something to etch to. Still, I get the old timers telling me I'm supposed to put it on bare metal, but I refuse. This is how we end up doing it here. Now, also, you can see where we've already started some of this filler work process, and you can see where we've got some filler applied. So to give you an example, we have a load that's here. It's probably that big around, right? So we've spread the filler in this entire area to smooth that out and feather it out. I've got a lot of guys telling me that's not the right way to do that, so that's kind of why I'm going over this. You guys are definitely mistaken. We like to spread that as far as we can. So this is kind of the first step. On that truck, we actually spread almost the entire truck and did everything kind of like in an eggshell, if you will. So this area of the fender here, we actually will end up having most of the fender looking that way by the time we're done before it gets to the feather fill primer, which is the following stage. Saying that, we had a lot of guys say our mill spec is beyond spec. First off, they couldn't give me a spec. And a lot of filler companies allow you a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. They're not even concerned about how thick the filler is. Some companies call it a 1/4 inch before they stop the warranty. That is insanely thick to us. As a matter of fact, most of this truck, some of the thickest points, that's pretty thin. That's probably, 5 sheets of paper? Keep in mind, though, that's not sanded primer. So that will knock down by half. So we'll probably be right around maybe 19 or so before we get to the paint process. That's really good. So in some areas, I don't know, like randomly right here, we got like a 12. Let's see, this one here, we got like a 24. We got like 15 here. Gauge can't lie. Basically, to give you kind of an idea, so these 8 sheets of paper right here represents about 0.034 mil thickness. So if you heard some of the numbers I was just saying on this truck here, where you have like 24, and we've got 34 in a couple spots, admittedly, especially along in these areas where the welds are. But again, that's with unsanded primer. A lot of guys are saying, well, by the time you get done painting, it's going to be too thick. Well, interesting thing about the paint manufacturers, they don't care what the paint is over. They don't care how thick that is. They care how thick the paint is, meaning sealer, base, and clear. That's where the manufacturers get their spec for how thick they would like their coatings. Any high-end project you see out there that's got a real good quality paint job on it, I promise they used plastic filler to some degree. We like to use 3M Platinum Plus because the way it's smooth, it isn't a real high build. It's not incredibly thick, so it lays out nice and you can pull it really nice. And again, it doesn't build. Instead, you can fill in your lows with your trowel, come back, sand that out. And sometimes you only make one pass and you're good to go. We're not talking, we're filling in dents, guys, okay? We're not making a car here. We're just evening out our surface. Again, follow along as we do this truck, and you will see how perfect this paint job turns out. So kind of playing back into the cost of this whole idea and where we're at just here, not including the buy price, not including materials. So just in body work alone, we're at 427 hours and an average of 90 an hour brings us to $38,000 just to this point. Now keep in mind, we haven't done the dashboard, steering column, the inside of the doors, and these trucks, all metal interiors on them, those get paint as well. So there's a lot more left to do. We haven't even sanded the primer, and we're already at $38,000. So for those of you guys following along, you had the metal work, you had the body work. To this point, we're at over $100,000. We're not even talking material. So for those guys that want to metal finish it and tell us we're not doing it right, I have to ask, who's paying for it? Who has that kind of wallet for just a decent truck? And yeah, we are capable of metal finishing projects. We have several in my shop. Please follow along. You'll see those soon that are absolutely metal finished works of art, but that's what the customer wanted to do. This truck was never slated for that. It was slated as a good, decent driver quality, something that's straight, has a great paint job, and that's all this was slated for. So by our rights, we're doing a very good job. So during this stage, we are still checking to make sure things are straight. We actually started developing our own gap gauges and contour gauges. So we have a couple different types here. We'll actually have them for sale on our website soon. What we like about these is first, it's an undeniable gap gauge. This can't lie to you. So when you're over here checking how thick all this stuff is and you're trying to keep it straight, with those little gap gauges, you don't understand if your line is wavy. This will absolutely tell you if you have a wave in your gap. So not only do you want your gap even, but you want to make sure it's not waving all the way down that panel. We also use it to check how straight panels are too. So this one here, right now, we don't have the weather stripping in it due to masking, but it is level across the panel here and here, so it doubles as a straight edge on top of being a gap gauge. It helps a lot. So even during the sanding process, we're going to keep an eye on how straight we have it. If we find any more imperfections, we use quick check spray too, so we'll spray that down inside of the truck, look for any waves or anything during that process. This is how you block a car, guys. This is how you put in the work to have that paint job. You can metal finish all day. I've seen metal finished cars that still have some filler on them, period. Going back to the Camaro, that car is not flawless. It's not perfect. It's not perfectly metal finished, but it has very little filler. When you're talking like 4 sheets of paper thick overall, that is so thin, it's almost immeasurable. I've got a lot of guys telling me about the temperature change. That's another good one. Hot and cold, that's going to crack, it's going to split, it's going to fall off. I live in Colorado. I've been in Colorado my whole life. This truck here had fiberglass over 1 inch thick in a couple spots. It had never cracked. It had never frayed. We didn't even know it was on the truck till we started sanding it off. So I'm not really sure where you guys are getting your information from, but it seems to be a little skewed. All right, so again, during the bodywork process, we're checking with straight edges. I'd say it's a pretty good long one. With how straight this truck is, as a matter of fact, considering you can't see daylight under that, I'd say that's pretty straight. And again, where do you draw the line? You know, whose money are you using? Now, it's not like we're sculpting this damn thing. All we're doing is leveling it out, smoothing it out. We're not building a car. We're not building a car. Again, mil spec is like below 39 all the way through high build primer. We're right where we need to be. We know that. Now we just got to make sure you know that. So follow along. Keep an eye on our channel. We got a whole lot more coming on this truck. Did I beat the employees on camera? Hunter? 90 days, man. It's your 90-day beat-in. Oh, it's my beating. Yeah. Not a review. It's a beating. Is that how we do the 90-day inductions, Bobby? Welcome to the crew. We just kicked your ass. I think that might be a good hook. Or, hey, you grouchy old f***. No, I can't say it like that.